Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by Cars.com, Valvoline, and Goodyear. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Welcome to MotorWeek's podcast number 4, coming to you from our MotorWeek Studio A. And joining me are senior writer and reporter Dave Durso.
Hi, John.
And our writer, Shamit Chuksy.
Glad to be here.
Assistant producer, Ben Davis.
I'd like to thank the... wrong speech.
Wrong
Hello?
speech, Ben.
Hello?
And reporter and producer, Stephen Chupnick.
Hello, hello.
And we're going to get things off to a start with one of the most controversial vehicles that's coming on the market currently. Ben Davis, the 2009 Toyota Venza crossover. What really is the Venza? It's not your typical crossover, right?
It's not. It's they're saying that it's a car optimized. That's the buzzword that they're using. And basically, they say that it's made from a bunch of different Toyota vehicles. A little bit of Highlander in there, some Camry. It's got it's a lower roofline than the Highlander, but they say that it's the same ground clearance as a Highlander. It's a lot easier to get into and out of than a lot of SUVs, but it can tackle everyday city terrain and potholes and stuff much better than a car. So I guess maybe it is a car optimized. You know,
when I saw it, to me, and I know this is actually one of the most controversial aspects, it was the first time that we've seen this kind of swoopy roof, 4 and 5 door fashionable coupe-like styling that the Europeans started with the CLS, and now we have the Volkswagen CC, which we'll be talking about later on the show. And the X6 from BMW. First time it's been applied to a mass market crossover. But yet, you didn't find that swoopiness in reality was anything that particularly hinders getting in and out of the vehicle or anything like that.
Oh, not at all. And honestly, a lot of people might not even notice the swoopiness on the Venza in particular as much as they would, say, the X6 or so. I mean, I even early noticed swoopiness as early as the Dodge Magnum wagon, really. Mm-hmm. And it more in tune with the swoopiness of that.
But the Venza is big. I mean, it's actually slightly longer than a Highlander, yet it only seats 5 people.
It swallows up 5 people, though. I mean, you can put 5 very big people in there.
Who do you think it's aimed at?
I liked it. I would buy one. I would say it's aimed at... young families that think that they might quickly outgrow a standard sedan if they bought one. Something that they really don't have to muscle car seats in and out of, maybe. Or maybe just young couples who have a lot of, 3 pretty good-sized friends.
Trendier. Would you say it's definitely a trendier, more fashionable?
It definitely is. I mean, the stock wheels on the 6-cylinder are 20-inch, and the stock wheels on the 4-cylinder are 19-inch. So that should give you a good hint.
That's actually a great point there. There is a 4-cylinder version, which there isn't of the Highlander. So if you're conscious about fuel economy, that's actually a pretty good deal.
Yeah, definitely.
Anybody else have any comments?
What class do we put this thing in? I mean, obviously the primary competition is the Dodge Journey, Saturn Vue. These are compact, or these are crossover vehicles.
Ford, Edge and Flex.
Ford Edge, sure, but this thing is not a crossover SUV. I mean,
I think it is. It's a mid-size. If you really look at it, forget the marketing hype.
Right.
It is a combination of a car, an SUV, the perfect definition of what we've been calling a crossover. Even if it happens to be, if they want to pretend it's something different, that's fine. But if you are, what is a crossover? A crossover is a cross between different types of vehicles.
Sure.
So that's what it is.
I keep hearing this crossover sedan, though, as opposed to crossover utility.
Right.
So they've sort of I guess they're leaning towards a sedan. They're saying
Except
it's a crossover.
It's got 5 doors.
Correct. So
yeah.
It's
I mean, I think
it comes down to marketing people saying we can't say what the other guy said.
Yeah.
We have to come up with something new.
The simple fact is, look at the BMW X6. It's a 5-door crossover. They call it a sports activity coupe. I mean, that doesn't even make sense.
Sounds right.
So the point is, though, it's a very highly styled. I'm not sure I'd call it premium because basically they do have a 4-cylinder and a relatively modest price, but certainly a very stylish.
It's very well done, too. I mean, Toyota's come a long way with texturing, even though the interiors are still mostly different kind of rubbers and plastics and stuff. The texturing process that they've come along with just makes everything look so much higher line than it really is.
Now let's move on to another example of this swoopy styling being applied to something other than a coupe, and that is the 2009 Volkswagen CC. They started calling it the Passat CC, Dave Durso, but I guess they've dropped that. But what CC stands for Comfort Coupe, but that doesn't really tell you about the car.
No, it really doesn't. And it's the thing that struck me most significantly was you mentioned the Mercedes CLS earlier. Mm-hmm. And you go to take this thing to a gas station, that's the first thing everybody wants to know. Is that a CLS?
That's pretty good.
It really jumps out at them like that. But actually, the Comfort Coupe, the comfort part, it really fits in a lot of ways because unlike the Mercedes, which is a larger car, but with let's face it, a pretty useless back seat,
right?
It's difficult to get into. You can actually get in the Volkswagen. I'm 5'11". I have no problem getting in the back. I have no problem riding in the back. It's a really good piece of packaging.
So you found though at 5'11", your head was right up against the roof.
I was close, but I could ride there. I could ride comfortably. I couldn't ride comfortably in the CLS.
Otherwise, it's basically a Passat. It's got Passat powertrains, the Passat chassis, which... Did you feel that it was tuned any differently? It
does have a little sportier tune than the basic Passat you can go and get. Mm-hmm. It's at your Volkswagen dealer. It's it's a little firmer. It's a little tighter. I mean, they did a little nice job. It's a little closer to. It's not quite GTI, but it's closer to that. So they're going for a little more of an enthusiast driver, I think, with this one.
Anybody else have any comments? Because this car is actually with us as we speak, and we've all been driving it in the last week or two.
I'm just looking forward to getting behind the wheel. I haven't driven it yet, so that's something that
It's a very slick-looking car. I have to say the seats, which are two-tone leather, in this particular one, we've got a VR6 with the 4Motion all-wheel drive. They're very... They look like the old Mustangs with the pleated seats.
Well, Volkswagen's trying to push it a little upmarket, so this is a pretty deluxe interior.
They strike me as Ferrari-esque, actually.
Well, that's actually a very good. That's another good
color
point.
Combo and pleat
if you look back at, or even some of the current Ferraris, how they do the pleating on the seats.
Yeah.
The other aspect of the car that got me, besides just the looks, is the fact that, it covers a broad price range. The base car is around 28, and then you go up to over 40 with the 4Motion and the VR6. But boy, that base car is actually a pretty nice car.
Yeah, well, you've got 200 horsepower, turbo 4-cylinder, so it's going to get around just fine. That's a proven engine. Volkswagen enthusiasts love it. I mean, it's very well equipped. I mean, you can get into the base car and not really have to move up. I mean, a lot of Volkswagen fans are going to be very happy with that.
Ben, you spent a lot of time shooting the car. Anything jump out about you?
The paint is very beautiful, although you wouldn't really you wouldn't gather that information off of first view. But when the lighting becomes an issue, low light and fog, that paint really jumps out from the dullness. It's a spectacular color.
I was impressed. Where I look at the Mercedes CLS as sort of a car for carrying the kids around on the weekend, but you can look pretty cool during the week. The CC from Volkswagen seems to be much more of a car you could live with every day.
Oh, absolutely, because
and a lot less money.
Even with a usable rear seat, it's got a big trunk, so you can carry all your stuff. You're not making really compromising anything for that style.
It certainly is a more interesting car to live with than I thought it was when I first saw it. Speaking of living with something that most of us that own homes have to live with for a good 6 or 7 months of the year is the chore of lawn mowing. And, it's one of those things when you tromp down to the shed, you hope it starts and you go mow the lawn. And I don't know about you, but I find it...
Actually, it sounds like my car.
It does sound like a lot of cars. It's one of those times you can think pretty clearly because you're pretty much by yourself. But, Stephen Chupnik, I leave it to you to find something really over the edge about lawn mowing. Why don't you tell us what the subject of one of your most recent segments was about?
Well, this was actually one of the stories that I saw. I was trying to find a story, and I happened to see the lawnmower racing.
Lawnmower racing.
And this was something that kind of jumped out at me, and I said, I've got to find out about this. And so I went out there and was kind of surprised at these guys and girls who ride these mowers and race these mowers take it really, really seriously.
Is this a national thing?
It is actually a national thing. They have the U.S. Lawnmower Racing Association, and it was brought over from the British. The British started it years ago, and in 1992, a company in Chicago Gold Eagle brought it over, and they started it, and it's grown huge. And
do they do regional championships and then a national? I mean, are they racing around an oval or through an obstacle course or what?
They have some obstacle courses, but mostly it's an oval, and there's competitions throughout the year that regionally they go through West Coast, East Coast, Midwest, and they have championships that for no money, but just for trophies and for the glory of winning.
Are they souped up?
Actually, yeah, they take a go-kart engine. They replace the regular engine. They first take off the blade. That's the one thing. That's
probably good.
That's the one thing that's the most important.
Then you're not going to get your lawn done.
That is a problem, though, if you want to get it done quickly.
How fast do these things go? I mean,
well, I got on one that went about 35 miles an hour around the track. Wow. There were guys that were racing 80 miles an hour around the track, and that one I wasn't about to touch.
You valued your life more than the lawn.
I did value, but I did. I was wearing. They require you wear a helmet. I was wearing a full helmet, pads, long sleeve shirt.
It's another form of affordable racing. And that's one of the most amazing things, that no matter how expensive racing gets, and car racing and bike racing has gotten very expensive, we keep finding ways to go out and have competition that are affordable.
But unfortunately, by telling me they took the blade off, you've already ruined my plans for inviting them over the house to do my lawn. So.
But single-purpose machines.
I do have to say, I mean, as much as the competition between everybody is, they are a real family. I mean, that's the one thing. And most of them, some of them actually are. They race against their husbands and wives, their brothers, sisters, kids. I mean, it's everybody's a real family atmosphere. Everybody gets along. They help each other out. That's the most surprising thing I thought was.
Well, I thought the segment turned out lots of fun. So thanks, Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's go back to something a little more orthodox. Shamit, you basically have just finished up the test on the Mazda6,
That's
one
right.
of the most widely awaited mid-size car entries for the year. So give us a rundown of the highs and lows. What did you think of it?
Well, John, it's. I mean, obviously, this is an all-new car in terms of interior, exterior, under the hood. It's the quintessential sort of family mid-sized car. The only thing is that it's had this long uphill battle within its segment against segment heavyweights, Accord and Camry.
But its big disadvantages were what against those cars? It was the fact it was a little small, right?
Well, a little small, and I just think from a branding standpoint, I mean, Toyota and Honda are just juggernauts, and I think that's the big thing that it's had to contend with. I think Toyota and Mazda's looking to turn this around, and what they've done is they've made the car. They've kind of split the difference. They've made the car larger. They've made it more aggressive looking.
Much more aggressive. It looks a lot like their concept cars.
And to match up with those aggressive looks, they've given it two new powertrains. A large inline four-cylinder. It's a 170 horsepower engine. The real champ is the V6. It's a 3.7-liter V6 that has 60 more horsepower than last year's model.
And that speaks to this whole performance zoom advertising that Mazda does, because I know that the previous Mazda 6, generally we all loved it. We found it much more of a driver's car than the Camry or Accord, but that lack of interior room, the fact it was the smallest of that group, just families just said, I need the room.
That's definitely changed, though. That car has got a nice big cabin in it now.
And the reason for that is a longer wheelbase, and so ride has been improved also. Actually, I would say the emphasis is ride over handling with this car. So even though it has more power and looks more aggressive, it's not the greatest handler in the world. It's a very comfortable car. It's a family pseudo-sporty looking sedan.
What about the interior? Because I think there was some controversy on the staff about that. Ben? Or Dave? Go ahead.
Good. Okay. Basically, the interior design, the layout's nice. I think some of the plastics are a little on the shiny side, which more so than you might see in Honda or Toyota, which I personally don't care for. Like I said, but the layout I can't complain about. That's probably my only beef is the plastics.
Ben?
My inner Zoom Zoom burns pretty brightly, as you know. I've gone through many Miatas. You've gone through a couple as well. Granted, the interior, the passenger side offers nice materials and soft touch, but the driver's side, there's no soft touch there. But, I mean, if you're touching the dash on the driver's side, that's kind of dangerous anyway, I guess. But the driver's, from the driver's point of view, the cockpit, it's got a nice cockpit sports car feel for the driver, and tons of room for everybody else. So it's definitely a more sportier choice than, I would say, a Accord or Camry.
It's one of the biggest cars out there in that class. So you know, all in all,
big interior, more trunk space, and it has optional blind spot monitoring. So
which is cool.
As far as safety goes,
yeah, I like the car. I thought their control layout was a little bit novel. It still was driver oriented, but so it wasn't anything strange, but some of the switch shapes and all are a little different and made me feel like I was in something special.
It's definitely a car worth considering if you're looking at the big boys in that segment.
Well, speaking of the big boys, I want to thank all you folks for gathering around the table for our MotorWeek podcast number 4. As always, it's been a lot of fun. We hope it's been enlightening for you out there listening. And I want to give special thanks to Jim Bigwood, who's in charge of audio for our podcast. But first and foremost, Michelle Parker, who is our producer, who makes sure that we get into the studio on time and have everything laid out and gets us through these. So thanks, M&Ms. Michelle. And M&Ms. She brought M&Ms today. So.
Peanut and plain.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Michelle. Thank all of you for listening to our MotorWeek podcast, and we'll see you again soon on MotorWeek.
You have been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by Cars.com, Valvoline, and Goodyear. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at motorweek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.